This episode is sponsored by PAX, the gold standard in emergency response bags. So when you're working under pressure, you need kit to be both dependable, tough and intuitive, and that's exactly what you get with PAX. Every bag is handcrafted by expert tailors who understand the demands of personal care, from the high-tech, skin-friendly and environmentally responsible materials to the cutting-edge welding process that reduces seams and makes cleaning easier. PAX absolutely puts performance first. They've partnered with 3M to make perfect reflective surfaces for better visibility, and bright grey interior makes finding kit effortless and fast even in low light. With over 200 designs, PAX bags are made to suit your role, your needs and your environment. And thanks to their modular system, many bags work seamlessly together no matter the setup. PAX doesn't chase trends, their designs stay consistent, so once you know one, you know them all. And if your bag ever takes a beating, their in-house repair team will bring it back to life. PAX are built to perform, made to last. Learn more at pax.bags.com or head to the show notes for further details.
You're listening to the Pre-Hospital Care podcast on the Medics Academy Network.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with Laura Hall. She is one of the co-authors of High Adventure Healthcare, which is a blog post and indeed Substack website featuring a number of educational and reflective pieces. Laura, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Owen. I'm excited to be here.
It's fantastic to have you, actually. Today we're going to dissect another fantastic blog that you've written on the website. We'll put it in the show notes so people can go away and just dissect it in slow time. It's a great read. I really do advocate and recommend people go away and read it. It's titled 6 Months of SAR, of Search and Rescue. Laura, you really do know, again, it's great to go away and look at this because there's some fantastic learning here, both with some of your anecdotal reflections, but also some of the pictures you put on there. And it really denotes your journey into search and rescue in Colorado and just the diversity of skill sets. It's just the redundancy that's needed within communication systems. But it's a fantastic piece. Could I just get you to speak to the origins of why you wrote the blog?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as I kind of talked about in the piece, but I've been interested in joining a search and rescue team for years now. I think the marriage of emergency medicine and outdoors just really calls to my skill set and my interests, and but I've kind of been bouncing around in life physically for a really long time, and so finally feel like I've planted some roots, literally building a house um, and yeah, it just felt time to reach out to the local community and volunteer and use my skill set to give back. So this piece was just kind of a reflection of the first 6 months and what I learned. And I was just reading it actually before we hopped on this call and just remembering back to that first meeting I went to and how nervous I was. And I think I actually almost turned around and was like, I can't do this. I'm introverted to my core, so walking up to a group of strangers is not really my idea of a good time, but it's turned out to be incredibly rewarding, and I've gotten lots of friends and memories out of it already. So
Yeah,
just sharing that
fantastic.
process. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a great piece actually, and in it you talk about the technical skills of rope rescue and medical triage, but also drone operations and interagency coordination. Could I get you to sort of speak to, I guess in a way, the revelation you had about how it really is, it's not just the technical piece, it is the interagency working and communication, and drones is another aspect. There's so many different
Mhm.
aspects of it. Could I get you to kind of unpack
Mhm.
just how varied the role is?
hmm Yeah, absolutely. And it's been probably about 9 months since I've joined the team now, and I'm still learning. I, try and go to as many trainings as I can. And our team is also in this unique spot where we've grown quite a bit. I guess several years ago, it used to be they would call out for help, and maybe four people would show up. And now we have a really solid team of probably 30 people. Um, so we've been going through some interesting growing pains, if you will, of learning. I think the really cool thing about SAR is that there's a space for everyone. It's not just these super outdoor athletes that go hiking in the woods or drop from helicopters or whatever it is. We need people that understand how to ask for resources and who to call to get those resources. We need people that know how to operate drones. Our team just got this, like, I don't know, $10,000 drone that is incredibly fancy. So we needed volunteers to get their drone pilot's license. Um, we certainly do need those ground pounders, those people that are super fit and can go into the backcountry and haul litters and gear. But we also need people that are, capable at four-wheeling and um, driving ATVs and Jeeps and getting us into these remote locations, and people that are skilled in technical rope rescue and avalanche rescue, and then, certainly also the medical side. So it's just really, it's kind of a hodgepodge of people and skills, and it's really fun to see everything come together in a way that helps save lives.
Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Just give listeners a quick idea, actually, Laura, if possible, just of the terrain, because you're in mountain time in the US, you're in deep in
Mhm.
the Colorado mountains, but give listeners maybe an idea of the variety and indeed the extreme nature of the terrain.
Mhm. Yeah, so Colorado's pretty unique. The eastern half of Colorado is might as well be Kansas, and then we have the central mountains, and then I'm on the western side of Colorado, so we have this really unique confluence of we have mountains. I sit at 7,500 feet where I'm at, and we also have, Moab is only an hour and a half away, so we have a lot of mountainous terrain between here, or desert terrain between here and there. We also have a lot of rivers and reservoirs, so a lot of water rescue. So it really does run the gamut of everything from mountains and 14ers, those peaks over 14,000 feet in Colorado that people love to climb, all the way to desert and off-roading and things like that. So quite the unique environment we have here.
Indeed, no, indeed. In the piece, you really do know actually about redundancy, especially certainly within communication systems, because as you were saying, in high altitude terrain, there is an absolute tendency for one modality of communication to fall over quite easily, be that cell phone, be that VHF or UHF radio. Then you're reliant on satcoms, satellite communication. Could I get you to speak to that? Because you really do denote it within the piece.
Yeah, I think redundancy in systems, whether it's medicine or outdoor adventures, is super important. You never know when one thing is going to fail. I think about that with water purification. Making sure you have a filter and iodine tablets. With your jackets, making sure you have something warm, and then you maybe also have an emergency blanket. And yeah, communications, that I think is something that every search and rescue team struggles with, is radio communications. You're out in the middle of the backcountry and you don't have a line of sight to use your radio. So what else are you going to use? Our team has a Starlink Mini, so we can connect to satellite and communicate via iMessage through that. And then we also, a lot of us will carry like a Garmin InReach, a satellite communicator. That alone really saved us on a recent search. We had a search that spanned almost 48 hours, and it was like the most remote part of the county that we're in, and we had absolutely no radio communication between incident command and the team on the ground. And we ended up having to kind of just find this middle ground, and someone would radio to the middle ground, and then the middle ground would or no, they would, I think they used the satellite communication to the middle ground, and then the middle ground would radio to IC, and then it would go backwards. And so yeah, having multiple systems and backup systems for when those initial ones fail, and then also being willing and able to be creative and flexible in your approach when plan, A through W fails, and you get to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, indeed. No, absolutely, absolutely. Just before you hear the piece, actually, so a couple of other things. One is the sense of community that you find through search and rescue teams, and it'd be great if you just unpack that. And another is you mentioned about the kit, and you mentioned in the piece about having very much increasing visibility, so having visibility within the kit, but also, like you said, just absolutely being prepared for extreme weather and dynamic weather really. So, have windbreakers, waterproofs, torches, maybe backup torch, head torch if the light fades or indeed darkness ensues quite quickly. Good footwear. So almost having a almost having a robust sense of putting your best kit to the test and having fallback kit, but also doing that with community so that actually there's a sense of camaraderie there, but there's also knowledge sharing there, and that you can sort of
Hmm.
share little pearls of wisdom between each of you. Could I get you to speak to that?
Yeah, definitely. My husband calls us outdoor nerds. So when we get together, we love to the team just loves to kind of, I mean, we'll open up our packs and we'll dig through them and we'll say, hey, like what's that device? What do you have there? And just kind of talk about it. We train together. We have formal weekly trainings 3 times a month, and then we'll do informal trainings. Um, I have within our group, we have a girls group that we call the SAR-ority. So instead of a sorority, I don't know if they have those in Europe, but um, we meet up and we'll get a beer together, we'll go for a ruck or something like that. And I think, particularly in your 30s and 40s, it can be pretty hard to make friends, especially, moving to a new town. So it's been a really fun way to yeah, to meet new people, to train together. We talk about SAR stuff. We also talk about life stuff, and yeah, and just to nerd out on outdoor gear and rescue and the latest and greatest hacks for kits and equipment and things like that. And yeah, it's been super fun and rewarding and building that connection.
No, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So just before you hear the piece, just the final question really would be around just something which comes together, and indeed is a question which a lot of teams face within search and rescue, which is, having a mixed ceiling of care, maybe a mixed group of clinicians with all very different skill sets, but coming to sort of a general understanding about what that ceiling of care might look like together as a group, because it is varied, but there has to be some common understanding of where the ceiling is and what you do together. Could I get you to speak to that? Because essentially, there is maybe a conversation to be had ahead of time to say, look, or we get a reduced GCS head injury, which is, pretty significant, but we can do this, this, and this. Maybe we can't do this. This is the group of drugs we are going to operate with. Is everyone comfortable with that? So there's almost this conversation ahead of time just to come to that kind of common understanding when you've got maybe a doctor, a flight nurse, and a flight paramedic or working together with maybe very different scopes of practice. Could I get you to speak to that conversation that you have ahead of time, and maybe that shared understanding that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We actually just had a a situation that perfectly reflects that. It was a head injury, reduced GCS, and I was the registered nurse there. I guess there was a paramedic and an EMT, and I was asked. We helped with the extraction, and then we were met with the city paramedics, and they asked me to go and help in the transfer. And before I hopped in the ambulance, I just said, you know what, I'm happy to help. You tell me what to do though. This is your call. This is your rig. This is your patient. I'm just here to be some helping hands for whatever you need. And I think having those conversations beforehand is super important. Certainly protocol, medical directors and what protocols they write and enable us to do, but then also just having those open lines of communication of, what are you comfortable with? Who's leading the call? Whose territory is this? Both in the moment and then also in those conversations that happen during trainings and really walking through like that worst case scenario during trainings, making those as realistic and stressful as they can be so that when the real thing comes, those conversations are easy to have.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Laura, thank you for your time. It's great to just unpick the blog post with you. Just about to hear it in an AI format. You'll be able to go away and read it in the notes. We're going to do some more work with high adventure healthcare in the future and unpick some more fantastic blogs. But Laura, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Owen. I appreciate your time.
Okay, let's unpack this. So, moving to a new place, trying to plant roots. It's always tough, especially if you're, an introvert and you're facing that moment of walking up to this tight-knit group of strangers and basically saying, "Hey, can I join your high-stakes club?"
Right, that stomach-dropping feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's precisely where the author of our source material started when she decided to join a volunteer search and rescue team.
It's such a great hook because it frames this whole thing not just as, a technical journey, but a social one. So for this deep dive, we're looking at 6 months of really intense practical experience.
And this is on a volunteer SAR team in a remote county in Colorado.
Yeah, and this place isn't just mountains. The operational area is incredibly challenging. It has literally every kind of terrain you can imagine: rivers, high peaks, huge reservoirs, even desert badlands.
Which is just a logistical nightmare to prepare for, I
A
imagine.
total nightmare.
And that variety is really what makes this material so interesting. So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to look past the stereotypes and see how a modern SAR team is actually built.
We'll dig into their training, which is relentless.
But ultimately, we are here to pull out the actionable, life-saving knowledge. Specifically, we're going to reveal the 2 critical safety lessons that anyone who goes into the backcountry really needs to understand. This is your shortcut to being safer out there.
So when most people picture a SAR team, you kind of envision that classic stereotype, right?
Yeah, the hyper-elite mountain athlete.
It's heavily bearded, maybe a little bro-filled.
Exactly, and our source material it immediately dispels that. What the author found was a real cross-section of humanity, a dedicated kind of ragtag team of people from all ages, all backgrounds.
So it becomes clear really fast that modern SAR is less about just being physically dominant and way more about having a huge range of skills.
Precisely. Baseline fitness is a must. You still have to hike for miles, but it is far from the most important thing.
Yeah, if you only bring physical strength, you're basically just a very mobile piece of equipment. The real power of the team is in skills that use technology and, soft skills.
Okay, give us some examples of that. What skills do you need beyond just hauling a heavy pack up a mountain?
Well, you need people who can operate a drone safely and effectively. That's huge for searching a wide area fast.
Right.
You also need people who are great at interviewing bystanders. Pulling out that one tiny detail about where a person was heading can save days of searching.
And then just the raw complexity of moving people and gear across all that different terrain.
Absolutely. You need rope specialists, and not just one kind. You need people who can set up a low-angle rescue for, say, a simple slip on a trail.
Okay.
But you also need the experts for high-angle rope rescue in, like, a technical cliff or canyon extraction. They're totally different disciplines.
And the author, she brought a medical background.
Yes. Triage and treatment, which is always needed. And then there's the more mundane sounding stuff. Like, somebody needs to know the exact limits of a side-by-side, a UTV.
Yeah.
How fast can you actually drive it on a terrible road when every single minute counts?
That's a great point. It's not just having the gear. It's knowing its limits under pressure. And to cover all that terrain, mountains, deserts, rivers, the equipment list must just be staggering.
Oh, it's an incredible resource drain. They have boats, snowmobiles, specialized trucks, side-by-sides, drones. They coordinate with aircraft.
Wow.
But the key insight here, the constant tension, is that despite all that high-tech gear, that last critical mile almost always comes down to a rescuer's own 2 feet.
You mentioned this is a remote county, so the population is lower. Does that mean the call volume is light? That they can keep up?
It's important to have context here. It's definitely lower than, say, the big hubs on the Front Range.
The ones near the big 14ers like Quandary or the climbing areas near Boulder.
Exactly. Those places are under constant stress. But even in this remote county, the local population is growing, and the number of tourists and recreationalists is growing even faster.
So the pressure's still building.
It's building. The volume might be lower, but the searches are often way bigger geographically, and the terrain is just more brutal. So the complexity kind of offsets the lower call number.
Which means training is everything.
Everything.
And speaking of training, the commitment they describe in the source material is, well, it's not trivial. These are volunteers with full-time jobs.
And they're meeting 3 to 4 times a month. Every month.
Wow. One meeting is for what they call the boring business items. So grants, insurance, equipment maintenance.
The necessary stuff. But the other meetings are all hands-on. One is almost always just for ropes and knots.
Just constant repetition.
You have to build that muscle memory for when you're under stress. And then a third meeting is for niche training. That's where they might dive into lost person behavior or, winter survival skills.
And all of this work funnels toward one big annual event, the SARX, the Search and Rescue Experience.
The SARX is the annual test. It's a full weekend commitment. They're camping out, running these incredibly complex mock rescues that simulate real exhaustion.
And they work with outside agencies too, right?
Critically, yes. They integrate with law enforcement, fire departments, the medevac crews. It's where they find their weaknesses before a real call does.
It sounds like the perfect way to break down those initial barriers, that introverted feeling, and actually bond.
It is. The author's own journey saw her mastering radio communication, constantly working on her rope skills. But at the same time, she was teaching her specialty patient assessment.
And planning to teach avalanche resuscitation for the winter.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the big stuff. We saw smaller things, like having to ride a mountain bike for 11 miles as a race sweeper just to get eyes on the ground.
It's that blend of huge operations and tiny details that's so impressive.
And the big push now is to access the most remote terrain. They're developing a new helicopter deployment team with the local medevac company. This is sophisticated stuff. Beacon-assisted flyover searches to cover massive ground quickly.
That sounds like a total game changer for speed, but I feel like there's a scary footnote coming for the person being rescued.
There absolutely is. And this is where the first really critical lesson for all of us comes in. The pilots and the SAR team have a very strict rule they communicate.
Okay.
They tell everyone, we'll fly you in, but we can't guarantee we'll fly you out, so pack a good bag.
Wow. That's a blunt dose of backcountry realism.
It is. Even with the helicopter, weather can change, daylight can run out, a mechanical issue can happen, and you might have to stay put overnight or longer.
So your good bag, your 10 essentials, that's what keeps you alive while you wait for the ground tea. It forces you to plan for the worst case. It's that constant striving for excellence that's so incredible. I thought it was really moving that after attending SARCon, the statewide conference, they got inspired to reopen cold cases in their county.
It just speaks to a commitment that goes beyond the immediate emergency. It's not just about rescuing the living, it's about providing closure for families and for the longtime team members who've carried the weight of those unsolved searches for years. So let's shift gears now to the core of this deep dive. All that training, it leads directly to the life-saving knowledge they get from real missions. These are the two nuggets we promised.
Okay, nugget number 1, look like a highlighter. This sounds so simple, almost obvious. But the story the author told makes it so clear why it matters. She shared a photo from a search on this huge scree field, all grays and browns. And she pointed out that you could barely see 2 of the 3 searchers. Only one, the one in the bright jacket, stood out.
And if it's hard to spot someone in a photo when you know they're there, imagine trying to find a tiny, motionless person from a helicopter.
Or from a mile away through binoculars.
Exactly. The rationale is just pure physics. Bright highlighter colors aren't a fashion statement. They're safety equipment. They provide the most contrast against natural tones.
So all those expensive, cool-looking earth tone jackets that blend in so well, they're actually working against you if you need help.
100%. A search team is scanning for anything that looks out of place. Greens, tans, browns, they just disappear, especially if you're hurt and not moving.
But a bright red or a neon orange?
Or a fluorescent green. Colors you just don't find in nature. They cut right through the visual noise. The quicker we can spot you, the quicker we can help you. That person with the trail name Light Bright really got it.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, nugget number 2, which is all about technology failing. Have redundancy in systems.
This one is so important. We rely so much on our primary device, our phone or our radio. We never think about what happens when that one thing fails.
And the source gives a terrifying example of this.
A perfect example. They were on a rescue deep in a canyon, one of the most rugged parts of their county. And their primary radios, these are sophisticated, $1,000 devices, they just stopped working.
Wait, they just failed, like broken.
Not broken, it was physics. Those radios require line of sight to a repeater. And deep in a canyon, there is no line of sight. The signals were completely blocked.
So they were cut off, no communication with incident command.
Totally cut off, couldn't report on the patient, couldn't coordinate an extraction. It's a catastrophic failure.
So how did they save the mission?
The mission was saved because several of the team members were smart enough and prepared enough to bring their personal satellite communicators. specifically Garmin InReach devices.
Oh, right. Those use satellites, not cell towers or repeaters.
Exactly. They have true global coverage. They were able to relay information from one InReach to another, basically daisy-chaining the signal down the canyon until it could get out to incident command.
So personal tech saved the day when the professional gear failed.
Redundancy didn't just save the mission. It probably saved the team from being stranded themselves.
So the lesson is profound.
Hmm.
But let me challenge that a little for the average person. Having a backup for your backup sounds great, but what about the weight in your pack?
That's the constant tension, right? The author isn't saying carry 3 of everything, but they stress redundancy in the most critical systems.
Water, shelter, communication.
Exactly. If your water filter clogs, have purification tablets. If your main headlamp battery dies, have a spare and maybe a tiny little backup light. And for communication in remote areas, that satellite device is just not negotiable anymore.
And they mentioned a newer device, the Starlink Mini.
Yeah, that's where the tech is really helping. The Starlink Mini gives you high-speed satellite internet, which is amazing for a SAR team needing to download maps or send photos. For the average hiker, though, the rule is simple. Have systems, have backups, and never, ever assume your expensive primary device is immune to the laws of physics.
You know, beyond all the technical skills and these life-saving lessons, this whole journey really highlights a deep human need we talked about at the start. The author moves to a new town, and she's facing that challenge of making friends in your 30s, especially with a weird work schedule.
And the social reward she found on the SAR team is maybe the most valuable outcome of all. She found this genuine instant community, and specifically, she bonded with a handful of other women her age.
And they gave themselves a fantastic name.
They dubbed themselves the sorority.
That's brilliant. And this became a real social network, right? Not just SAR meetings.
Oh, absolutely. The sources talk about this endless text stream of adventure planning, going out for beers, and just celebrating each other's life wins.
Like finishing an ultramarathon or buying a house.
Exactly. It just shows how shared adversity can forge these incredibly strong immediate bonds. There's even this charming detail about them signing their names and telling their stories in a hidden book at their local brew pub. It's like a physical record of the community they built.
So that initial anxiety, the introverted feeling that started this whole thing, it was just completely erased by finding that common purpose.
That synthesis is really the ultimate value here. She gained technical rescue skills, she refined her interpersonal skills under intense pressure, she mastered backcountry medicine, and she found friendship. It delivered on every single level. It truly is, as one of her new friends put it, just adding to the resume of my life.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've taken a deep dive into how a modern volunteer SAR team works. We've seen the value of diverse skills and the absolute necessity of constant training.
That Cerex, the cold cases, it all points to this incredible dedication.
And most importantly, we've pulled out those 2 essential safety lessons. First, always look like a highlighter. Maximize your contrast so searchers can find you. Every second counts.
And second, build redundancy into your critical systems, communication, water, shelter. Recognize that your best piece of gear can and will fail.
And if we connect this back to the big picture, you have these volunteer teams getting more and more capable with drones and helicopters.
And at the same time, you have more and more people pushing further into that remote, brutal terrain.
Which creates a really interesting tension.
It does, and it leads to a question for you to mull over. Given the profound personal time, the emotional toll, and the financial commitment these volunteers make to save lives, what is the ethical and practical responsibility of the individual recreationalist to prepare, to invest in the right systems, and to minimize their own need for a rescue in the first place? That's the conversation we encourage you to have until our next deep dive.
You're listening to the Pre-Hospital Care podcast on the Medics Academy Network.